Hello and welcome back into the Shack Podcast Network. My name is Ethan Frank. And as always, at the beginning of your work week, we are going to be recapping this week. It's the final two episodes of The Last Dance. And as always, I'm joined by the founder, Mr. Aaron Notice. Aaron, how are you doing on this lovely Tuesday morning?
It's a lovely Tuesday. I thought it was going to rain. I looked at the weather. It's never going to rain. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yes, it is very nice outside here in the Northeast. But we are here to talk about The Last Dance, the final two episodes, episodes 9 and 10, which, as we saw throughout the entire documentary, did not have as much variance as episodes 1 through 8. We're mainly focused on the 97 and 98 seasons pertaining to the Chicago Bulls. And I would say the only flashback we had was really when they were talking about Steve Kerr and that whole little anecdote that they had about his life and his family, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But episode 9 started off talking about the first few games of the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals. So, Aaron, would you like to dive us in talking about the start of these playoffs where we ended on a kind of a quote-unquote cliffhanger at the end of episode 8 with Reggie Miller saying he was going to end Michael Jordan's career?
Yeah, so they start off with a bunch of interviews with Reggie Miller, and Reggie is talking about him facing Michael for the first time in his career. And he went off for, 16 points in the first half. Michael had scored not as much. And he was trash-talking Michael. He was like, hell yeah, I'm here now, whatever. And then Michael comes back in the second half and scores like 30-something and holds Reggie to 2 points. And then end of the game, walking off the court, Michael looks at him and goes, don't ever fuck with Black Jesus. It's a great quote. That's Michael Jordan at his peak right there. If you're going to call a man Black Jesus, do it right.
I think Reggie said he's never called him Michael Jordan. It's always Jordan, that black cat, or Black Jesus. And
Yeah.
so I think he said it's one of those three, which just shows you the respect that Michael's peers had of him during his time in the league. But the home team won the first 4 games of this series, and I don't remember them being that particularly close, except for game 4, which we had the shove by Reggie Miller. The Pacers were down by only 1, I think, with 2 seconds left. Reggie Miller came off a screen. He said he knew the Bulls were going to switch. He basically two-hand shoved Jordan, caught the ball, squared up, 3, perfect with 0.7 seconds left. And I think the forgotten shot, which I had never seen before, how close. Jordan caught the inbound after this made 3, double clutch in and out off the backboard was a lot closer than I think people remember.
Yeah, I think they say this more about Steph Curry now, which I don't think is true, but there was no shot that for open for Michael was not like going in. There's always a chance, no matter where on the floor he was. If he was open, there's always a chance it's going in.
And that's a great point. Talking about Steph Curry a little bit, we saw that scene from I think the Bulls were practicing in Utah, and they were having that competition, shooting it like 5 or 6 feet behind the 3-point line, and nobody could make it. And Michael finally made it. It's like, if you did that in today's NBA, the first person to shoot it would make it, because that's just how much the game has evolved, which I thought was pretty cool. Just looking back, like, wow, how much, like, Reggie Miller and Steve Kerr were probably the only 2 people in that whole series who were wanting to consistently take threes. Michael and Scottie could both take them, but they weren't shots that they were, I don't know about comfortable, but they really wanted. They were looking to get to the basket or pull up in the mid-range.
Yeah, I mean, the game's evolved. When you look at Rick Smith's looking like Simbular out there.
The Duncan Dutchman.
Huge white guy. Like, he's just huge. He would never make it to the NBA today. Simbular is my physical comparison to him. If anyone remembers Simbular, first Indian player to ever make it to the NBA, was in the league in, I think, 2016. Survived 3 games with the Sacramento Kings, or maybe 10 games, like the end of the season, trash time, and then never made it back.
Yeah, he was not very good. Not very light on his feet was Simbular. But, yeah, so we had those first 4 games. Then we go back to the 97 finals. 97 was an underrated Bulls team. They went 69-13, only 3 games worse than the season before. So this team was really, really good. And Michael still continuing to reinvent himself, get even better than he has, even though he's losing his athleticism. His mind games and his basketball IQ was consistently increasing, which led them to continued success in the late 90s. And we get a new finals opponent. We get Utah. We get some great interviews with John Stockton talking about their mentality and their game plan and what it was like to face Michael. And we see the first few games of those finals. They're kind of close, nothing too flashy going on. Then we get a little bit into Steve Kerr. And Aaron, do you want to take us through Steve Kerr's like his childhood and what happened in Steve Kerr's life?
I would love to. So we've got Steve Kerr, grows up in a small town. His parents are both professors. He's very school oriented. They weren't allowed to watch TV until the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because they had to do their schoolwork unless there was a huge game, in which case his dad would sometimes help out. His dad became the president of American University overseas. I forget exactly where.
In
Somewhere
Beirut.
In Beirut, yes. And this was during a very politically heavy time in Beirut where Americans were not very liked. They were not liked there. So Mr. Kerr ended up getting murdered, shot by someone posing as a student after coming out of the elevator in Beirut. Steve grew up without his father for a lot of his childhood.
I think he was actually murdered while Steve was back in the States at college. I think is what happened. I thought he said he was at Arizona at the time that his father and the rest of his family were in Beirut.
I'm pretty sure it was high school because that was when he really started to get into basketball. I don't think when his father died, like the thought of him being dead, he wanted to play basketball even more, and that's why I think it happened earlier.
That's possible, but regardless, Steve Kerr went on to play basketball at the University of Arizona, and his first few years in the NBA, he said he was having trouble carving out his niche and finding his place. And when he finally got to the Bulls, he relied heavily on John Paxson, as he saw Paxson just become that one of those perfect role players next to Michael Jordan. And he learned from him throughout Paxson's last year in the league and Kerr's first year with the Bulls, which helped set them up for success in what would be Game 6 of the 97 NBA Finals. But before we get to that, we have to talk about the food poisoning game.
Well, I would love to insert a little bit here. I think if you're going to dive into Steve Kerr's life and you're going to say Steve Kerr is filling this role that John Paxson filled in the earlier trilogies, you have to go into John Paxson's life. And I will vote for another episode or two of this documentary any day of the week. I think you got to add a little bit about John Paxson's life.
So, do you know much about John Paxson's life, or were you just advocating for John Paxson there?
I think if we're going to learn about Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr is the John Paxson of the second three-peat, then we need to know about John Paxson too. John Paxson, we get all these interviews with him in his Bulls Nike polo, just kind of chilling out in this movie theater-esque room, but we don't know anything about this man.
That is, I'll give you that. Well, that's also because he was GM of the Bulls at the time. But regardless, let's move on to the food poisoning game. Game 5 of the 97 NBA Finals. Series is tied 2-2 in Utah. I think the Jazz had just won 2 straight to tie up the series. And the night before the game, Michael's really hungry. He's hanging out with his room with I forget his buddy's name. Is it Ed or
George?
George and Tim Grover, his trainer, and a couple other guys. And the only thing that was the only place open was a pizza place, and Michael ate the whole pizza. There were 5 delivery guys for one pizza.
Something came out this morning. Apparently, one of those delivery guys says the whole story is bullshit.
Really?
He claims he was the delivery man and claims that Michael's story is complete and utter bullshit.
Sounds like a plea for fame, if I've ever heard so myself.
I mean, if I was around alive at that time, I would say the same thing. I'm the pizza man. I'm the guy who deflated the footballs for the Patriots. I'm also the pizza delivery man.
But yeah, he ate the whole pizza, which caused another great meme. I ate the whole pizza all by myself. I was the only one that ate the pizza, basically describing everyone in their houses not allowed to go outside.
Never
Um,
related to Michael Jordan more.
exactly. And so he's sick throughout the whole night after eating the pizza. His mom tells him not to play. Grover's telling him not to play. Just he was in bed all day. He missed shoot around. But he tells Phil he's going to try and play. And he guts out 44 minutes, 38 points, the game winning three.
That's Mike.
I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Bulls take a 3-2 lead heading back to Chicago. Jerry Sloan in his post-game press conference says he didn't know that Michael was sick, even though that was the only thing anybody talked about all day long. Jerry Sloan would not fare well in today's NBA, obviously.
No, I think Jerry Sloan would fare much better than most. I think it's a lot better when you don't focus on the media. I think
Well, if
it's
you
what
need
ruins players and coaches.
this is pertinent information that you need to try to take advantage of.
I don't think you could take a. I don't think Michael showed that he was sick. Michael played like he was healthy, except for those first few minutes before the first time out. Michael played like he was healthy.
All right, that's fair. We head back for Game 6. It's a back and forth game. Malone and Stockton doing their thing, Jordan doing his thing, and then they remembered that Michael was probably going to get doubled based off of the last sequence in Game 5. So Steve Kerr told him that he would be ready, and Michael got doubled. He passed Steve Kerr the ball a little bit above the foul line. Jumper, swish. Bulls win their 5th championship.
Yeah, this is something that I was thinking about. A lot of this has become like a Jordan's better than LeBron thing. And yeah, Jordan can be better than LeBron. And ESPN even had a graphic, I think, for the first time in their life saying LeBron is worse than someone. And a lot of it to me, I was thinking about who's taken the biggest shots in their career. And the two biggest shots in LeBron's career were both taken by different people, I'd argue. The Kyrie 3 against the Warriors in Game 7, and the Ray Allen 3 to send it to overtime against the Spurs.
You could argue that, but LeBron has made all these. Well, there is no Kyrie 3 if LeBron doesn't make the block.
Yes, exactly. There's a defensive sequence to set it up.
And the Heat still would not have won that championship if LeBron doesn't put on an all-time great performance in Game 7 that is overlooked because of Ray Allen's shot in Game 6. And also, I might add, the Heat were down 5, and LeBron hit a 3 to cut it to 2 before the Ray Allen 3. So LeBron's 3 before that set up the Ray Allen 3.
The biggest shots should be taken by the biggest players. I'm not saying that Ray Allen and Kyrie shouldn't have taken those shots. I think the biggest players usually show up in those times, and I think that, in one sense, can be the difference between Jordan.
Well, I mean, LeBron did take the shot. He just missed.
I mean, yeah. And then they gave it to Ray.
Yeah, well, he got the rebound. Allen was right there. I wouldn't say that one was LeBron's fault. And if the play was drawn up for Kyrie because they knew they could isolate Kyrie on Steph, then that was the play. I mean, there was still 50 seconds left. It's not like it was with 10 seconds left. There was still time. Theoretically, the game could have been tied by the Warriors, which we saw Steph try and shoot a 3 to tie the game. And I'm assuming that's what they expected to happen. This was just to get them in the lead. We don't know what would have happened after that because Kevin Love played great defense. But we're getting off track here. Let's get back to Jordan. This is not a LeBron argument segment. Go back to what you were saying about Jordan, Aaron.
Jordan takes the biggest shots. He makes the biggest shots.
So you're disappointed that he passed to Kerr?
No, I think it's a good play. If you can, he knew the cameras were always on him, and he was just Steve Kerr said it was so funny when Steve Kerr knows the cameras are on Michael. Michael looks at Steve and is like, "Hey, be ready." And Steve just he whispers it, and then Steve just starts yelling, "Yeah, I'm ready. I'll be ready." That's hilarious.
Yeah, that was really good. Another thing great from Steve Kerr was his story at the parade saying how Michael said he didn't want to take the last shot. And Steve said he stepped up in the huddle and said he would take the burden from Michael because Michael was feeling a bit nervous on the big stage, which I thought was really funny.
Just bailing Michael out again, Steve Kerr's life. But I'm still going to go back to my John Paxson thing. We have to go into John Paxson's life. I understand that Steve Kerr's father died, and it's similar to Michael because Michael's dad died. We got to learn something about John Paxson.
I can't imagine that there's anything that exciting about John Paxson. But let's move on to back to 1998, the Eastern Conference Finals. The Bulls and Pacers split Game 6 and 7. We go or 5 and 6. We go to only the second Game 7 in the Bulls title run at home against Indiana. And I really do agree with Reggie Miller that the Pacers probably had more talent and were the better team, but championship DNA outweighs that by a lot. And the Bulls ended up holding on. Rebounding was the key in this game. I think the Bulls had like a 40% offensive rebounding percentage, which is unreal. It was really a game of runs. The Pacers started out early, and the Bulls came roaring back in the second quarter. But the key was the jump ball late in the fourth quarter between the Duncan Dutchman, Rick Smits, who we mentioned before, and Jordan. A 10-inch height difference, yet Jordan still wins the tip. Or Smits wins the tip, but he tips it right to Pippen. Kerr hits a three to tie the game. Really, really swung the momentum, and the Bulls went on and advanced to their sixth finals in 8 years.
It was really a situation, a right place, right time for Scottie Pippen. Really good work. I don't see any other way. Like, Jordan would never have won that jump ball. You can say Jordan won the jump ball because it got to Pippen, but no. Rick Smits hits it to Pippen because Pippen was in the right place at the right time.
And that is basically the end of episode number 9. Was there anything else from episode 9 you'd like to add, Aaron?
No, I think we covered it all.
So
John
episode
Paxson needs to be covered.
Yep. Aaron has very strong feelings about John Paxson.
Very strong feelings about John Paxson.
Well, if you have strong feelings about John Paxson, I have strong feelings about Horace Grant. I want a Horace Grant episode too.
That was the whole Magic documentary was Horace Grant.
I know. I loved Horace Grant. Horace Grant was great. Episode 10, we start with the 98 NBA Finals, which is basically the whole first half of the episode. The Bulls lost game 1 in Utah, but ended up winning 3 straight in a row. And then we get a little bit about Gus, Michael's head of security, and how he stepped up to be like a father figure for him after his father died, and the relationship he had, and how Michael said he wanted to win for Gus, which was very cool and kind of an inspiration to people because Gus was battling cancer, and some showed another human aspect of Michael that we didn't really get to see in the moment, which was really cool.
Yeah, that like segment was leaked a week before by ESPN. They had put it out saying like a preview for next week about how Gus steps up. And I watched it for the first time a few days after I'd watched episodes 7 and 8. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But then they go into Gus's life, and I was just like, oh man, this is interesting. I like this guy. He's cool.
Exactly. So the Bulls end up going up 3-1. And they have game 5 at home because of the 3-2-3 format that the NBA used up until 2014. And then we get a little Brian Russell. I don't know why I always thought it was Byron.
No, I call him Byron Russell. I don't really care. His name is just Byron Russell.
Brian Russell's backstory. Apparently, he was talking shit to Jordan when Jordan came and visited Karl Malone and John Stockton. When he was playing baseball, they were practicing at the Bulls practice facility about to play the team. And Jordan wanted to go visit his dream team teammates, and Brian Russell went up to him and was shit-talking him, saying he should come back. He doesn't have anything left in the tank, which I think Jordan kept on his list for the next 5 years.
I think Brian Russell. I'm going to now say that. Byron Russell, I believe, said something around the nature of, you knew I would guard your ass and shut you down, so you didn't come back. And that is the worst thing to say to Black Jesus.
Basically, we get to game 5. Karl Malone has the game of his life. The mailman delivers. I just listened to an interview with him. He's a great interview. He didn't want to talk about The Last Dance at all, but he's a very unique guy. He had the game of his life. The Jazz end up winning game 5 in Chicago when they're basically planning for the victory parade. So they have to go back to Utah. So we get to game 6 of the finals. Scotty's hurt early. His back is killing him. And I think I want to go back to what I talked about with Jordan before, just how much he had evolved as a player, that he knew he wasn't more athletic than everyone, but his ability to find the key spots and the key moments where he knew he had an advantage over his defender was what led him to greatness. His brain outweighed his body, I think, in this year in this finals. And I think it was some of my favorite highlights to watch of the documentary just because of just how different he looked, yet he was still Michael Jordan. And that was amazing. He scored 45 points, and the Bulls were down 3 with 45 seconds left. And we have the best 3-possession stretch in basketball history. We have a blow eye of Brian Russell with starting at 41.9 seconds. We have a blow by. Jordan does not clear on the screen by Hornacek, and while Malone's trying to post up. So the Bulls are down 1 at this time. He comes from behind, swats the ball out of Malone's hand, steals the ball. Malone falls over. He comes up the court, and great decision by Phil Jackson. No timeouts. Don't let the defense get set. Trust Michael. And he hits the shot over Russell. Did he push off Aaron?
No, I think he was resting his hand.
I think he gave him like the tiniest of pushes, but
Look,
I don't think it had that much
if
of an
I've got
impact.
a defender on my hip, and I know he's got all of his energy going that way, I have to run that way so that his energy can go that way. My hand is already out in front by his body, so I can put it around him without putting any force on it. I think he was using all of his force in his right hand to bring the ball back. I think he didn't really push off that much because if he had, I think his left hand would have been a little bit slow. You get that John Stockton double coming. Ball gets stolen. It's a harder shot.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's the lasting image of Michael Jordan. The gooseneck, the swish, 6.6 seconds left. Stockton misses a 3. The Bulls win the title. Phil can't believe it. Michael says he can believe it. He's playing the piano back in his hotel room. He says it's a smoking floor now, asking before if it was, which was pretty funny. And then we have the parade at Grant Park. Phil, MJ, and Scotty each continuing to take more shots at Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf. And I'm going to be honest, I really was not a fan of the end of the documentary. I would have really liked if they elongated some early parts and ended it with with Game 6 of the finals and the shot. I think that would have been better. I just think it
Yeah.
would have been a cooler ending. But getting Jordan's reaction to Reinsdorf's reasoning for breaking the team up, talking about how he wanted ring number 7, I think was interesting as well. But I would have had that earlier. I don't think I would have had to end the documentary like that. I thought something about the shot or him talking about how he's the GOAT would have been a lot cooler and a lot more just it would have sparked a lot more, I think.
I think that it would have been cooler, but I think it makes sense to put the Reinsdorf reasoning at the end because after all that, you've seen how it all ends, and then now you want to know why it's all split up. It makes sense.
It does make sense. I just think it kind of just it was about Michael's play. And I think maybe if you put the reason, I don't know how you would have done it, but I just feel like ending with the shot is what you had to do to end the documentary because that's the defining moment of the last 3 years of his career. And it's how he went out on top. No other athlete really went out like him. We're going to exclude his Wizards years. I mean, it just means nothing. But it's the shot, and everybody knows what the shot is.
It's a 10-episode, 1 hour an episode docuseries. It's a 10-hour docuseries. And you want to load the best moments in the last episode. I don't know. That kind of reminds me of The Joker. I watched The Joker yesterday, and the whole movie is nothing until you get to the last 15, 20 minutes. I think you need things like that to keep you in throughout the whole docuseries. I mean, it's Michael Jordan. It's obviously, it's the story of the 98 Bulls. It's interesting. So you want to watch the whole series, but it would get dry and boring if you didn't keep it the way it was. And also, they were doing it chronologically, so it made sense.
Well, yes, I agree, but I just think that 30 minutes talking about oh, we all read our emotional poems and writings and then burn them in a can. Was that really necessary? I feel like that was just kind of a footnote.
It could have been 3 minutes long. It didn't have to be half an hour. I don't think it was half an hour. I think it was more like 20 minutes, 15 even. But they did extend that more than they could. I also think they could have gone into blowing it up, Jordan retiring, Phil signing with LA, winning those 5 championships, Pippen getting traded, Kerr getting traded, Rodman's release. We also skipped over Rodman left in the middle of the finals to get a
Oh, yeah.
WWE belt.
We
Like,
did.
this man is crazy. This man is off his rocker. Another GOAT interview with Carmen Electra. Like, another GOAT picture of Carmen Electra kissing the Larry O'Brien. Like, that man's crazy. If anyone ever compares him to Gronk ever again, I'm going to just punch them in the face.
Yeah, you texted me that. I never saw anyone comparing to Gronk. I was a little confused. Who?
I feel like every time I've talked to, like, someone, one of my college friends, it doesn't even matter, just anyone, my dad, they, like, think it's Gronk. Gronk at least, like, had his mind fully in it. Super Bowl week, you don't see him out of Miami Beach.
Come on.
That's just
Don't disrespect Rodzilla like that.
Rodzilla was in it when he was there, but Gronk would never just leave up and at it in the middle of the Super Bowl and be like, hey, it's halftime, J-Lo's performing, I'm going to go party with J-Lo, I'll come back like midway through the third, I got to get rid of that hangover.
Dennis Rodman is the definition of separating your personal life from your work life. Anytime he was not on the Bulls' time, he was doing something that was enjoyable for him. So when he was not playing in games, he was doing what he wanted. I mean, he was separating his personal life from his work life. And while that was controversial to some people, he was doing what made him happy. And Phil knew that. And Phil knew that they didn't. He got fined, what, $20,000 for missing practice, but he got paid $250,000 for being at the WWE event. Seems like a win to me.
You would call it a win, Ethan. If you leave in the middle
Did the Bulls win the championship?
They did win the championship, but
and
if you
he got paid $250,000.
You're getting released. I would release your ass the next year. Like, minute the finals are over, I would release your ass.
Yeah, but they needed him.
They could get Horace. Literally, he didn't do a good job. Carmelo had the finals of his lives. Like, Carmelo was killing him because he's bigger and better. Carmelo was the 97 MVP. Like, there was a reason that Carmelo was there.
I understand that, Aaron, but who else was going to guard him?
Pippen.
No, Pippen was too small and injured.
Muscle him up. He's the best defender of all time. One of the best, or not, if not the best, one of them.
All right. I guess that is enough Rodzilla talk. What are your final thoughts, Aaron, about The Last Dance? What do you have to say to The Last Dance? This content we've had for the last 5 weeks, as this will be the last of our recap episodes up on the OD Shack at odshack.wordpress.com.
All good things have to come to an end, Ethan. And this documentary, it got your eye at times, as documentaries do, but it accurately and interestingly showed the life and career of Michael Jordan, the GOAT, who first brought the world to basketball. The world would not be at basketball right now without Michael Jordan. And I think that's important to realize because there's no global attention on any league in America without Michael Jordan. The NFL would not be playing games in London. The MLB wouldn't be playing games in London. The NFL wouldn't be playing games in Mexico, et cetera, without Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan made American sports a brand. And it's important to realize how he did that. But it's not just important to understand him on the entertainment side of it all. Obviously, he's a killer. He's Black Jesus. He's that Black Cat. He is the greatest athlete of that generation till his Wizards days. But Michael, God bless, they didn't show the Wizards days. But Michael Jordan is the GOAT. And this documentary did a great job showing that.
I think that's a great way to finalize our last recap. Aaron, thank you very much for these last few weeks of content and podcasting. I've enjoyed it very, very much. And you can enjoy the rest of our content that's currently up on odshack.wordpress.com. Aaron, any final thoughts before we sign off finally?
This podcast has been great. We're coming out with new things. We're in the middle of getting a new funny sports guy. He's actually funny. We're going to be bringing some new content to you. I'm sorry if we get boring. I think we're funny. We're going to get some new funny guy for you.
All right. Well, funny guy is on the way. Thank you for listening to the Last Dance recap on the Shack Podcast Network. Have a great day.